Hello, everyone. John Ricco, FCCFA Executive Director, here with our Governmental Affairs Consultant and Lobbyist, Georgia McEwen. And we're here to give you a quick wrap up of what did and didn't pass during the 2021 legislative session. It was kind of a barn burner, and we're still trying to unpack everything. But we thought we would start with what did pass. So we'll talk a little bit about House Bill 1209, which is the Chief Financial Officer's legislative package. And I'll turn it over to Georgia to hit some of the highlights on that. Georgia?
Good morning. I wanted to tell you about the House Bill 1209, our Department of Financial Services bill, which we were successful in getting the provisions in, or some of the provisions that we asked for. I should say that the department was very cooperative in working with us for these provisions, and that I've already been called by the Office of Policy and Budget and been told that they had vetted this bill and were very favorable towards our provisions. I will mention the three that are the most important, and then maybe turn it back to John to talk a little bit about the changes in the board. First, it cleared up the glitch about and clarified that cemeteries may sell monuments on both their grounds and in other cemeteries. That was an important provision. And as you all know, there was a glitch at the funeral board meeting, and we were able to take that and fix it with legislation. It created a licensure bridge for our interns so they are not in limbo for 6 to 8 weeks while they're waiting to get their license. And it fixed the trust requirements for imminent contracts. This provision would permit the pre-need licensee to avoid trusting funds for a pre-need contract, which has been fulfilled prior to the date that funds are due to be deposited in the trust. That's verbatim, and it was language that Representative Federhoff was very amenable to, and we put it in the House, and then the Senate took it, and the process worked rather smoothly. I'm going to turn it over to John to tell you a little bit about the tweaks they did in the board and the division.
Right. Well, as you all know, the Chief Financial Officer regulates more than just the funeral industry. So obviously there were a number of changes regarding the firefighters and some of the other areas that the Chief Financial Officer is responsible for overseeing. There were also some changes with regard to the funeral board and mostly administrative type things. But the CFO used to have to forward 3 names to the governor for appointment. That statute was tweaked to say he can recommend 1 to 3, so he doesn't have to put a full slate of folks forward if he's only got a couple of names that he wants to put forward to the governor. It also reduces the number of consumer slots from 3 to 2. There's been some issues in the past of trying to find consumers who are willing to serve. It allows for video conferencing, and there were also some cleanup language with regard to what constitutes unlicensed practice as well. So there were some other tweaks related to the industry that were in that piece of legislation, in addition to what Georgia mentioned. So we encourage you to take a look at it, and we'll be sending more information out with regard to that particular piece of legislation. Another one that passed, which may be of interest to our members, is House Bill 37. That's regarding abandoned cemeteries. And essentially that legislation creates a task force to look at the issue. And that task force is primarily tasked with identifying and finding avenues to help once those abandoned cemeteries, African-American cemeteries are identified, to identify some ways to help preserve those. So that's House Bill 37. And then there was also some COVID liability reform, which passed. I'll kick it over to Georgia so she can touch on that piece of legislation.
Senate Bill 72 by Senator Brandes was passed early on in the session and sent to the governor. It was a priority. It's signed and already in law. The bill, finally, there were 2 different versions of that bill. One was for businesses and one was for health practitioners. They combined that to make it simpler, and they sent it to the governor, and he's already signed it, as I said, and it's in law. It will give businesses and people working in nursing homes and other health practitioners some cover and some protection from liability. I should say that this was the #1 priority of the governor, and everyone worked together, and I think that it will benefit our industry as well. It's a very good bill.
Right, Georgia, thanks for that. Okay, and last but certainly not least, Senate Bill 54, which is no-fault automobile insurance reform. This was one of the most hotly contested issues at the Capitol, very controversial. And the most interesting part, or the part that's really of concern to funeral professionals, is the $5,000 death benefit. Neither the House nor the Senate version of the bill initially had the $5,000 death benefit. In the Senate bill, we managed to get it in, it was out, it was in, it was out. And finally, in the waning hours of session, we managed to make sure that it was in there. I'd like to thank in particular Clark Smith with Southern. He is part of our lobbying team that helps us out, and he did a great job of working that particular issue for us. And so the death benefit is preserved in Senate Bill 54. It might be a little bit different in how it operates just because there were so many changes to those portions of statutes, but we expect that it will remain largely as it has in the past. I guess the only issue, Georgia, is that this thing is so controversial that we're not sure if the governor will actually sign it or veto it, or what might happen. So I guess the future on that one remains to be seen.
Right. But the good thing about that, John, is the fact that if it goes back to current law, we're still all right. So that's in the governor's hands, but we don't really have to worry about it. But I would hate to see Clark's all his hard work go down the drain, because it was not easy to do that. So we're glad that we have him on the team for sure. And I think that's about it as far as those issues that particularly relate to our membership. I don't know if you have anything else to say. It was a wild, wild West session, and very different than anything I've ever experienced in my 30 years. Hopefully, we're hearing the governor's opened up the Capitol again, and things will maybe go back to normal next year. But it's been a pleasure working on these issues, and I look forward to the convention and seeing you soon.
Well, thanks, Georgia, and we appreciate you and all of your hard work. We know that during the legislative session and even the weeks and months leading up to it, it's nonstop, go, go, go. And then you got the 60 days during session where it's very, hectic and kind of crazy and emotional, another roller coaster. So we appreciate all the work that you do on our behalf, Georgia. So thank you for all that you do. And we thank all of you for participating and watching this episode. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye-bye now.